my great pleasure now to introduce Michael Atherton. Now, Michael Atherton is a really esteemed musician, but educator, and he has a vision about music, and that's why we're having him here. He's terrifically eloquent, fascinating, and talented. And he's going to talk for a little bit longer. We may not have questions and answers, but don't worry, he's going to stay around for lunch and we can do the questions and answer. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you.
Hooray.
Thank you. Well, I thought I knew what a powerhouse is until I met Janine today. Thank you, all the wonderful people that make this organisation. They can't hear me? Well, I shall project. Is that okay?
Oh, please.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to give you a little journey into my life, my connections with music, and some of my writings. You can see it says never miss a beat, a life in words and music. That's a double pun, actually, missing a beat in music. But I also had a period with something that some of us will know about called AF, that assassin called atrial fibrillation, where in my case it was like someone playing a drum in 7 beats and another in 6. But so there's a pun there for my cardiologist, never miss a beat. And I'm not going to miss a beat, I'm going to share with you my journey. So hopefully this will go on to the next slide. My DNA is Welsh, Irish, Viking and Northwest German. So I'm a bit of a mongrel. I know that I'm Viking because I went to a hand doctor when this tendon started getting shorter and he said, Jupitrons, you're Viking. Oh, thank you. Very interesting. So it hasn't stopped me playing music. I was born in what was a very bombed out city called Liverpool, and there's the Liver building and the River Mersey, and of course you've heard Ferry Across the Mersey, which we all sang in the 60s. These are typical Anfield terraces where I grew up till I was about 7. Notice the lack of trees and gum trees and more gum. It's a pretty stark place, Liverpool. Very exciting, but very stark. And when I was born, suddenly, when I was 4, I was given a blue shirt. Now, I had no choice. I don't know why I got a blue shirt, blue socks. I think even my dinner plate was blue because I was part of Atherton, not Liverpool, the Reds. And in fact, I was born in Atherton Hospital, lived in Anfield, the home of Liverpool, supported Atherton because I had no choice, and didn't realise that I was born in a Welsh-Irish household, which was, being Liverpool was really the capital of Ireland, and Liverpool and Wales for a while. So my DNA is concocted. And I'd like to share a poem that relates to this. When you're a Liverpudlian, oh, that's good, I'll just go back there. When you're a Liverpudlian, you'll appreciate the perversity of this. I was born into the world of an Atherton hot leg. I'm going to read you something from my book, Poems of a Single Breath. My father leads me among the men in blue, braving the wooden steps of the Goodison Park terraces. Ruddy-faced under flat caps, men jostle me, swearing in scouse, blowing rings of cigarette smoke. And you can join in with the chant. Atherton. Atherton. Very good. They chew gum, open mouthed, spit forcefully, and cough out their beery breath, steaming the wintry air. An army of voices swells to 1,000, 10, 20, 30,000 in unison, chanting for their football gladiators. Atherton. Atherton. Oh, no one's calling Liverpool. That's good. The overcrowding tests continence. We all know that word at our age. Men, young and old, unzip shamelessly and pee where they stand. I was born for a life in the blue tribe. No escaping the Saturday ritual, only keeping the faith. Everton. Everton. By half-time, restless bladders around me ache, but the crush of the crowd prevents an exit. The wooden steps I stand on are covered in rivulets of pee. I'm anointed in the crossfire. Warm urine runs down my calves, baptizing me with an Everton hot leg. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Goodison Park host, Everton. Everton. Everton! Yuck. Everton hot leg, thank you. Well, I was a forced migrant. My father said, in 6 weeks we're going to live in sunny Australia. It never rains. When we get to Heathrow, we chucked our raincoats in the bin. It'll be sunny every day. You'll have a pony, and there are kangaroos on the main street. What he didn't tell us was that we were going to live in a migrant hostel for 2 months. Well, no, it turned out to be 2.5 years. What did I have in my head? I had music. That's all I had. And this riff, which you probably know by the Rolling Stones, The Last Time, would change my life. I came to live in Bunurong Hostel, which we call Stalag Bunurong. As you can see, it's a delightful place. You need to be a real refo or a pom to go there. These were the entrance to our rooms. They were just gyprock. But I'm so glad I came, but at the time I was rather dismayed. There we are, some people own cars and they drove down the middle. I brought a guitar on an aeroplane. I couldn't play it. In 4 years I was teaching in the music shop up the road because I wanted some connection with my adolescent life in England. I didn't want to come to Australia. I was the eldest of 5 kids. My father said, "You're going, that's it. We're running away. We're escaping from this land, his debts, and also his PTSD. He was on the beaches at Sword in Normandy, never recovered. So I learnt to play the guitar. And within a year in living in the migrant hostel of Bunurong, I formed a band. I bought a classical guitar for $30, which you could then. And there I am, about the same time as Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin drawing a bow onto a guitar. I did the same thing in Bunurong. And I didn't know. That's serendipity. And I formed a band called This Generation, after the Who's song, My Generation, Why Don't You All Fade Away? Remember that one? Really good. Here I am on the left, looking very short-haired and very Beatle-like, Elvis-like, playing. This was a new beginning. And what was really exciting was going to do Catholic Youth Organisation dances. And one night we were up on stage, and we were playing a song called Multiplication, which is a song about boy meets girl, and, you know, wow, we're kind of getting close. Well, 2 Catholic novitiates came up in the stage and said, "You can't sing that." I said, "Why not?" They said, "It's rude. It's wrong. It's pornographic." I said, "No, it's a song." Anyway, he said, "We'll turn the power off." So we cut it out of the repertoire and kept going. I wouldn't stop today. So what happened next? I taught myself the HSC. I had correspondence notes for about 5 months. I did my HSC at home while I worked during the day. So here I am, a hostel kid, moving out. I wanted desperately to go to university. I was cleaning pubs, working as a theatre porter in the hospital, working in a meat works, and then as an office boy. And I just had to get myself into the new world of study, which I did. And I went to UNSW, the only place in the world which appointed a wizard. Ian Channell was the wizard. There's our Vice-Chancellor with his wizard, Vice-Chancellor Myers on the left. It was a wonderful time because we had Tharunka, which is, I think, is a corruption of Churunga, the Aboriginal message stone. But Tharunka was satirical, confronting, engaged and idealistic. I've written a bit about it in this book because we had Wendy Bacon and Richard Neville. I don't really have time to read that bit today, but I can assure you it was an extraordinary place to be at what they call Kenzo Tech. And while I was at Kenzo Tech, I discovered literature. I did literature, philosophy, French, Music was still part-time. I was like a lot of people walking around carrying a guitar thinking they were Woody Guthrie or Bob Dylan. But it would lead me to explore a lot about music, and then gradually, when I was studying English, I discovered medieval Renaissance music. And that was just really wonderful because it eventually led me to studying the classical guitar and eventually meeting a wonderful woman called Winsome Evans and joining a group called the Renaissance Players. And I'd just like to say, to acknowledge, again, the power of serendipity. In this audience today, I have one of my original colleagues who I didn't know was going to be here, Wayne Richmond. He's over there from Humph Hall, bagpiper and percussionist extraordinaire. That's Wayne. And also a lovely surprise, John Barnard and Fiona Garlick, two amazing dancers just there who dressed up in medieval Renaissance because they would come along and dance. They were part of the Renaissance Players Collective. A wonderful experience for me. Here we are in 1984, about to go to Southeast Asia. You can see right in the back, Wayne, he's got his hood on and he's playing the bagpipe. I'm on the left with a lute. And there's the extraordinary genius, Winsome Evans, playing the portative organ made by Ron Sharp, who also built a slightly larger organ. It's in the Opera House. Here's Winsome and I sitting on the lawn posing for some newspaper thing. I'm playing a crumb horn and looking very hirsute, as indeed is Winsome. She's still got long hair. And here we are in Martin Place. Yes, I spent my life for a while there dressed in a polyester yellow and red top with tights and leg bells. But you know what? It made me connect with people. And here we are in Singapore. We became part of Musica Viva's and the Department of Foreign Affairs Cultural Diplomacy. We played many concerts in Asia, as I went on to do with my other group, Sirocco and Southern Crossings. I'm not in the photo, but there it is. Now, one thing about playing in the Renaissance Players, you got to play a lot of instruments. When I was at school, I hated playing the recorder. Now, I've got nothing against recorders, I love them, but could you imagine how an English kid in a primary school, 40 kids, played the recorder? Well, I can tell you. The teacher said, "Recorder time." And you went to the back of the class, you picked up a jar, unscrewed the lid, and there were two objects inside that jar which was full of Dettol. There were two pieces of a recorder. And you screwed the recorder together and shook it and gave it a wipe on your uniform, and you blew a mouthful of Dettol. Talk about aversion to playing the recorder. Anyway, my excursion into medieval and Renaissance music brought me in contact with other really interesting possibilities. Let me show you one I made recently, trying to explore the ancient sound of a bone flute. We were cooking, I'm a vegetarian, but my wife was cooking for my son and cooking a lamb, and also buko, was it, or something? So I borrowed the lamb bone and I cleaned it and dried it out to try to make an instrument which in New Zealand's called a kawawa. It's a Maori bone flute, but its origins probably go back 15, 20,000 years. Some of the first flutes were made from bits of cane or even bone. If you're Maori, Aotearoa, you might even make it from the bone of one of your enemies. I can assure you this is an Australian lamb or an ex-lamb. And these are the kind of sounds that were made probably 15, 20, 30,000 years ago. A kawawa. But it didn't stop there. In doing research into early music and poetry and working in the Renaissance Players, doing my degrees, I discovered many woodwind instruments, including this one, a gem's horn, which is a bit like an ocarina, a lovely Italian word for the instrument, although it doesn't mean little Australian Sheila, an ocarina. It means a little vessel flute. So this one is made from horn, called a gemson. I play you... this is the oldest written love song in England from the Middle Ages. It's called The Bird on a Briar, or Bricht on a Brera. And where there's one, there's two. And paintings in the Middle Ages often depict one musician playing two instruments. Now that's probably sacrilege if you're a unionist. One musician per instrument. But we'll break the convention. This is a double flute, and it enables you to play some harmonies. And this is very common in the Middle Ages, and it's kind of died out. But it's being revived in the folk and early music revival. This is a piece called Machincheth. Does anyone recognise the language? Cymraeg, Welsh. This is in honour of my Welsh ancestry. This is a piece from Machincheth, which is in the centre of Wales. It's a little reel, polka reel, on the double flute. So what we're going to do now is to invite you to become medieval musicians. Wayne will know this one very well. But when Karl Orff wrote his Carmina Burana, he borrowed a lot of the poetry from the original manuscript, the Carmina Burana, which were full of amazing poems and musical references. And they were reputedly sung by the Goliards, the wandering scholars, the renegades who ran away from the church, or maybe not, and they pinched bits of music, and they wrote very raunchy pop songs of their day. Now, we're going to do ours in Latin. You're going to help. So I know this is an adult audience, but we're going to disguise some of the Latin. But what I want you to do is to blossom in love with me, and you have to sing a chorus. And the words are o, totos floreo. Can you say it with me? And o, totos floreo. Iam more virginale totus adeo. Iam more virginale totus adeo. Novus amor est quod pereo. Novus amor est quod pereo. O, totus floreo. Iam amore virginale totus adeo. Novus amor est quod pereo. Is anyone here dying for their new love? Well, that's what the song's about. I'm going to go down there, I'm going to sing it. I'm going to use a balama, which is a Turkish long lute, which is a direct descendant of medieval long lutes, and you'll hear the sound. You'll hear it around Australia in Turkish communities, and we'll get you to sing. The balama, or the long lute. The iPad. To help me remember my Latin. Not my first language. Feel free to come into the chorus and get up and dance if you like. John and Fiona might show. So, you'll hear that I'm singing about Philomel the nightingale, about the flowers, and about new love, spring, etc. Mea me deportat negatio. Oh, oh, totus glorio. Amore virginale totus stanio. Novus, novus amor exoterio. Mea me conludit virginitas. Mea me defrudit simplicitas. Hey ho, ho, totus glorio. Amore virginale totus stanio. Novus, novus amor exoterio. Sile Fidomela pro tempore surge cantilena de pectore. Oh, totus glorio. Amore virginale totus stanio. Novus, novus amor exoterio. Are you feeling enlivened now? You're all... There's another instrument that is very useful. I'm going to have a go at playing this again later when we do the ABC song. But in the Middle Ages, musicians had to accompany dance, and sometimes there'd be a fiddle and a drum, or a pipe, But one thing that was very popular was the pipe and tabor. There's the pipe, there's the tabor, and I'm going to add another thing, some leg bells. These are so my wife could hear me coming in late at night. But it gives you a kind of a one-person band. Notice the gender neutrality rather than a one-man band. It's taken me a long time to learn that, but it is appropriate that we say that. So the pipe and tabor meant that you could actually create a little orchestra. And this is called Barley Break. The idea being that you could follow the dance, teach the dance. And there's a famous Shakespearean comedian called Will Kemp. He's mentioned as being on the stage with Richard Tarleton. He wrote a book called 9 Days Wonder, and he danced to the pipe and tabor for 9 days from London to Norwich. I'm not sure why, but I don't think he was part of the Hash Harriers or he was eating hash or whatever it was. But it's quite an interesting moment that's noticed. Well, anyway, my excursions led me to Sirocco. Before I went in Sirocco, I worked for 3 years as a music therapist with Mari Bashir. I was part of her team at Rivendell. And I also describe that in my book about working with her with emotionally disadvantaged adolescents. It was the most wonderful period in my life. 3 years writing songs, devising improvisations, working with occupational therapists, psychiatrists to help young people. After 3 years, I was nearly burned out, and my ego got to me. I wanted to perform again. So sadly, I said to Mari, I really want to move on now. She said, okay. And I wanted to join a group called Sirocco because it was kind of wild. And my ego said, I want to get up there on the stage again. Nothing's changed, has it? Look at me. You know. Anyway, I joined Sirocco, and here we are in 1982 in Melbourne. And, we kind of played a crossover music between Balkan, Middle Eastern and Celtic. And my dear friend Eric Bogle, you probably know him from the band play, he had a great description of the band when he was asked one day. He said, what sort of music does Sirocco play? And he said, they play music from the wogs to the bogs. So not so politically correct, but I love it. Here we are in Western China. We went to play for Musica Viva in the Department of Foreign Affairs and playing a lot of our instruments. And they loved it because they could see the connection between multicultural Australia embodied in our group. And they really put it on for us. Here we are in Urumqi in Xinjiang province. You can see the writing there. You've got the... let's see, get this going. Is this going to work? Oh, there it is. You've got the Han characters, the Uyghur Turkish characters, and the good old Aussie flag. And we're playing there, playing for these wonderful people. And This painting, of course, it's changed a bit now. There you see the Han people on the Han people on the right. Well, that's going crazy, isn't it? The Han people in the painting, and all the different ethnic minorities of China, the Kyrgyz, the Tajik, the Uzbeks, and the Uyghurs. Of course, it's very contentious what's happening now in China. They're trying to kind of create a dominant Han majority. Anyway, here we are with some Uyghur musicians, and they're very excited about the Greek bouzouki. And we took this in our group as an archetypally modern Australian instrument. Because let's face it, Melbourne is the third largest Greek capital after Athens and Thessaloniki. And so you find this instrument, the bouzouki, was like my balama, like Middle Eastern instruments. Now you have a wonderful modern misnomer, the Irish bouzouki. There you go. But they loved it. The Uyghurs thought this was fascinating because it's like their own instruments. And then we met a lot of children and vendors in the streets. I took these on one of the very first point-and-shoot Nikon cameras, and it survived very well from 1984, these pictures. And, there we are. Go back to these. Yes? Going crazy now. Here we go. Just show you these guys here. If you want a haircut, you go into the street. You probably wouldn't see scenes like this in Western China now. There are high-rise everywhere. These people are gone. The next group I had was called Southern Crossings. This was from 1986. And there we are playing for the ABC. We did this a lot, doing live broadcasts. And many musicians in the 80s and 90s thrived because of people like Malcolm Batty. They recorded everything. Today, the ABC can't afford to have tonmeisters, the sound engineers that they train, but there were many of them. And they would love to just bring groups in. Many groups went in. Don Burrows, Galapagos Duck, the Renaissance Players, the Leonine Consort, you name it, the Australian Chamber Orchestra. And they were given live broadcasts. Musica Viva loved what we were doing in Southern Crossings, and they sent us to many festivals in Asia, in Mexico, Jamaica, Edinburgh. Here we are in Verona, outside Palladian buildings as part of an Australia in Venice, in Verona, in Italy week, and where we've got an indigenous group, Bungul, we've got the Flying Fruit Fly Circus, Stalkers, Stephen McIntyre, pianist. That kind of cultural diplomacy is really important in Australia. It's a long flight, but we do show that we're diverse. Speaking of diverse, I'm going to read you now, briefly, from a book which I called A Coveted Possession. What has lived with us, entertained us, travelled with us, and embodied Australian values and aspirations, only to end up on the tip? Now, it's not the sewing machine, the car, nor the Hills Hoist, it's the piano. Before the radio, the gramophone, and talking pictures, it was the piano that brought Australians across the continent together for recreation. So important was the piano in Australia that it contributed to nation building through local manufacturing, superb piano factories built in Sydney for Beale and Wertheim. And to kind of counter the imports that were coming to Australia. The use of leading-edge technology and meticulous craftsmen are hallmarks of local product. Over there is I think that's a Chinese Beale, a more recent one. But the Beale name was eventually sold off, as indeed all Australian names were. Beale made 90,000 pianos in that factory on the left, and Wertheim in Melbourne made 60,000 in that one in Melbourne. These were state-of-the-art art factories between 1900 and 1910. There was nowhere in the world with the conditions that workers had and the quality of the workmanship. So, carted by bullocks, splashed with beer in goldfield tents, harbouring mice, dusted off in classroom chalk, missing a string at the local church hall, or serving as a mantelpiece for family photos and flames, the piano became our constant companion. And that's what I wanted to show, that there was something in the biography of the piano that showed where it ended up. It went out into the bush on the backs of camels. This is a painting of a piano that went to Oodnadatta, to the station eventually in Alice. Here it is outside a bunker in World War I on the Western Front. Can you just see it? Just there. There it is, a piano. How important was the piano to Australians? Australian households had more pianos than anywhere else in the world in 1905. A miner in Lithgow would put all his money to buy a piano for his daughter's wedding. Everywhere you went, there was a piano. One of the things the nurses enjoyed in an Australian hospital in England, a piano donated to them. And look at the ship, repatriating soldiers. Guess what's in the corner and it's playing? It's a piano. The boombox or the karaoke machine of its day. And look at these soldiers here, learning to wool class. And you know what else would be on that ship? It's a sad fact. There'd be soldiers blinded in war. But you know what happened? When they got back to Australia, some of those became piano tuners. People were helped, they were taken aside to do things. So the piano's been a very underestimated part of our lives. When the soldiers liberated Leh from the Japanese, they found an old piano in the commandant's hut. And look at this young chap there, triaging a piano. Look at the battle-weary faces on these diggers. They've been through hell and back, but they're playing a piano. Why? Because the piano is a symbol of civilization, of sound, of harmony, of peace, of spirit, of joy, of divine music, not the noise of war and the dreadful state that our world is in now with multiple wars. Long live the piano and the ABC. So I want to thank you very much for listening to me today. And I'm going to finish now. Well, there's two things I can do, but I'm going to finish with a piano of sorts. It's not a piano, but you do play it with keys. I mean, what is he talking about? I'm going to play you an Australian-made hurdy-gurdy. No, it's not the hurdy-gurdy in the Donovan song. It's an onomatopoeia for an extraordinary wheel-sounded instrument that's bowed. I think it's the sound of a violin having an affair with a bagpipe. It has key work. I'm going to bring it close to show you. And I'm going to play a short air and a piece I wrote called Slate Train, after the quarry trains in North Wales, where my great-grandfather and grandfather worked. So let me show you the hurdy-gurdy. Just so you know what's happening, Australian Tasmanian blackwood, a loop body, hurdy-gurdy, otherwise known as a nenner or a viela hoop, or a Hungarian tekla wurla, German drehler, tangents, drones. Drones are very important. You've heard drones in the bagpipes. The drone is not the drones of Iran and the US, God help us. The drone was that constant of the universe. And even today in Indian classical music, the intervals are measured against that drone. Kepler worked out that the drone sound of the planet was about an A flat. But here we have an Australian-made hurdy-gurdy. This one is a copy of an instrument played by Marie Antoinette before they stopped her rather dramatically. You'll know what I mean. No one stopped me, I hope no one stopped me. Anyway, I'm going to play you these tunes. As a hurdy-gurdy player with a convex lute-shaped body, I have to have a fairly lean diet, because if I start to develop a beer muscle, I wouldn't be able to hold it. It's got to sit there tightly. And you'll have to forgive me, I'm going to play a tune from China. It's called Tuning. There we go. Tuning, you know, tuning. Tuning.
my God, I feel limited. All I could play is the piano. And I've been doing it since I was 6 years old, but nothing approaches this. So I just want to thank Michael and Michael and Michael and Michael. I mean, it's not just one person, he's a lot. That was, I don't know what to say actually, but that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. Now, I just want to ask you something. Two things. First of all, can you play that? Of course. It hasn't been, it's got no detol on it.
Oh, no.
It hasn't been played for 20 years. Michael, can I put one question to you?
Yeah, sure.
One of my most favourite sayings is this. Just check on this. I'm just overwhelmed by what I've been listening to. Words are the dress of thoughts and should no more be presented in rags, tatters and dirt than your person should. What about music?
I'm stunned.
That's how I feel about what you've done today, what you've done all your life.
I'm just very fortunate, privileged to have come to Australia and grown up here and been able to contribute. And I tell you, the ABC have been wonderful to me, a lot of musicians. But Murray, I've had many, many mentors, and I had to overcome a lot of barriers, but it was music that helped, and it was that I took forward into when I worked as a music therapist. And when I, later in my life, and I retired in 2012, when I became a professor of music, I was determined that I wouldn't have a stuffy approach to music. I didn't like the boundary, art music versus folk music. It's a stupid boundary, and so I was very interested in trying to make things more permeable. And I'm probably the only professor of music in Australia that took in 2 kids in that first year that couldn't read a note of music. Well, Paul McCartney can't, nor can Tommy Emmanuel. But I said, in 3 months you could learn. And it was important to me because I'd had the opportunity to say, if you have a passion, and music breeds passion, we're all musical. Don't kid yourself. Everyone says, we shouldn't just be guided by the AMEB, which of course is very important, the exams, but music is such a personal thing. When you were a fetus, these were growing first. And I think when we go on, when we cross the river, they're the last ones to switch off. So I think we're very, very blessed that we have people that listen as well as use gestures at a time, Corinne, when you don't know in 10 years whether I'm real or not, whether half my brain is being implanted. This is a time to be proudly human of what we do and how we gather together. And I appreciate your feelings, and I appreciate the fact that you came to hear live music and that you care about the ABC and the democracy. Where is that close to?